Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And today it is Monday, which means it's time for your weekly top 5 video. This week, as requested in last week's top 5 video, we are going over my top 5 premium ships that I believe you should avoid. These ships are simply not worth it, either for the coal, the Research Bureau points, or the outright cash you have to hand over to Wargaming in order to acquire them. Once again, this is a video from last week's top 5 videos comment section, so if you have an idea for a top 5 video, please put it in the comments down below. You might see your idea become next week's top 5 video. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Oh, right before we do, though, of course, we must appease our algorithm overlords. So if you do find yourself enjoying this video at some point through it, or at least before you click off, please make sure you drop a like, leave a comment, and if you want more of this content, hit that subscribe button down below. As I've said, this is a weekly series that goes on here on the channel, so if you like this and want more, make sure you do all 3. But anyway, on to the list. Coming in at number 5 is a ship that actually hurts me to put this ship here because it's a beloved ship for me in real life, and that is the Tier 5 Premium American Battleship, the Texas. The Texas, yeah, I really hate that this ship is on this list, but it does belong here. Why? Because the Texas is simply a worse New York in pretty much every way, shape, and form, except for slightly better turret angles, I believe, on turret number 4. Other than that, the New York's better in every single way. You get the same guns on the New York with a much better reload, and that there just makes the Texas not worth it, because the Texas's identity has unfortunately been kind of stripped from her, even though Wargaming has been trying to give it back. They simply refuse to do the one thing that would make the Texas, good again, and that is extend her AA range. You see, the Texas's whole thing back in the day is that this is an AA boat. Like a really, really good AA boat. If you can't tell, there's a ton of AA guns all over the ship. And back in the day, this was the best AA boat in the game until you got to Tier 8. Like from Tier 5 to Tier 8, this was the ship. Well, Tier 5 to Tier 7, this was the ship that you sailed when you were tired of being bothered by carriers. And that made up for her longer reload time on her main battery guns. But since the CV rework back in the day on Update 8.0's release, we're going to decide that every single nation is going to have a standard range for their AA guns, which means that the Texas's AA guns, the range was shrunk down to 3.5 kilometers. And now, while yes, inside those 3.5 kilometers, the DPS is really, really good. It actually has a DPS rating of 235 versus the measly 53 DPS rating that the New York has. So while, yeah, it is like, quadruple the DPS of the New York, unfortunately with a 3.5 kilometer AA range, not many CVs are going to really be within that range for too long, especially with, how aircraft carriers work. You might fly through that for a few seconds, but you're not going to really be able to shred planes like you once were able to with the Texas. Now, a little while ago, they did give her the DFAA consumable, which boosts her AA DPS even more. And while, yeah, that does make her a little bit better of a plane shredder, it's a far cry from what she once was. And still, of course, too, the fact remains that you are giving up 4 seconds of reload time to maybe shoot down a little bit more planes than your standard Tier 5 battleship. She has a reload time of 34.3 seconds versus the 30.5 seconds reload time that the New York has, with, again, the exact same guns as the Texas. So, you get mildly better AA nowadays than the New York. Well, effectively mildly better AA. Like on paper, yeah, the numbers are kind of funny, but again, in real life, you're not going to really be shredding that many planes for a much longer reload on the exact same guns. Oh, and shorter range too. Yeah, the New York has a base range of 18 kilometers, while the Texas has a base range of 16.4 kilometers. So, yeah, on the two things that really matter the most to battleships, range and reload time, the New York is clearly better. And the Texas, while yeah, on paper, the AA numbers look funny, again, effectively, it's not really that much crazier than the New York. So, why bother coughing up the money to get the Texas when the New York can be had for free? And if you really want a Texas just for the premium aspect of it, you can just buy the premium package for the New York. So there is very much that. Now, again, I'm not like hating on the ship itself in real life. Some people, for some reason, think that I am when I'm talking bad about a ship in game. I love the Texas. It's actually where I went on my senior trip to visit the ship. There's a video of it up on the channel, but it's very bad. I'm hoping to, go back and redo that video with proper equipment and stuff once the Texas does reopen. So, like, I love the real life ship. Unfortunately, don't really like the in-game ship, which again is why it hurts so much to put the ship on this list. It was one of my earlier premium ship purchases back in the day when I started playing World Warships 2, so I have a pretty long history with the ship in game. But unfortunately, yeah, it's just not worth it when there's a Techline ship alternative that is just better than it. Which brings us on down to our number 4 slot, which is the Tier 8 premium British battleship, the Vanguard. Another ship that I absolutely hate seeing on this list. Because, man, last battleship ever constructed in real life, and it's terrible in game. I mean, my God. Outside of the situation that's going on in the background right now, when I've got 2 giant Tier 9 and Tier 10 battleships just to HE farm down with my Vanguard, with nobody else really bothering me on the flank, it sucks. Like, this ship is so bad. It's so bad, in order to make a viable version of it, they had to juice it up so much that we got the Valparaiso, right? They give it combat instructions with a insane super heal and crazy secondary guns. Yeah. It's so sad that the last battleship ever constructed isn't, like, at least halfway decent in game. You would think, last battleship ever constructed, the gunnery should be excellent, the maneuverability should be excellent, maybe she should have some type of radar and really good AA, but no, we get the Vanguard with very much infuriating main battery guns. Like, the main battery gun reload time of the Vanguard is actually pretty solid. The dispersion is just not very good. Definitely not good enough to really use AP reliably from range, so you wind up HE spamming with the Vanguard more so than anything else. Which, again, when you're going up against, like a Vermont and a Pommern on the same flank, yeah, that's fine when you're dealing with them because those are 2 huge ships. But in any other situation, like when you have to deal with other cruisers or really anything smaller or more maneuverable than those 2 ships, it gets very frustrating very fast. Not to forget to mention, her turret angles are just so bad. Like, you have to pretty much be almost flat broadside to get all 8 of her 15-inch guns on target. That's the other thing, too. She has 15-inch guns at Tier 8 with a good reload, so it's like, fine, okay, but the accuracy is so bad. At least in my experience, it tends to be. But anyway, so yeah, if you want to get those 8 15-inch guns on target, you have to pretty much show your flat broadside, which is going to get you Citadel because the Vanguard Citadel is not very shy, shall we say. So you're going to get Citadeled if you try and, get all 8 of your guns on target and there's any type of, big scary battleship there with largish guns looking at you. Now, the saving grace for the Vanguard is that she does have a pretty quick rudder shift time. So, and again, in the situation like I'm in, where I'm a pretty good distance away for the most part, I'm just spamming HE at ships that are pushing into me. I'm able to, wiggle around enough to really avoid getting slapped too hard by the enemy team. But this is in one very particular situation, right? And outside of that, that's really all the ship has going for her. She doesn't have any other consumables, no radar, no hydro, no DFAA or anything like that. You just have 8 15-inch guns, terrible gun angles, a decent reload time, and yeah, that's really it. Again, for the last battleship ever constructed. The ship really should have had a lot more going for her, in my opinion. Maybe like a radar. I know back when the Vanguard was released, radar spam wasn't everywhere just yet. We were kind of getting there, but not just yet. But again, last battleship ever made should have had radar, or at least, or something else to make her a little bit better. And man, even when she came out, I remember she wasn't regarded that well. I liked her because she was more maneuverable, and that was pretty neat. And back when she came out, God, what was it, like 2019, I think? It was like, okay, yeah, it's not fantastic, but it's not terrible. It's pretty maneuverable, right? But of course, as the game has aged, we've got crazier and crazier things added to the game. She has not aged well at all. Now, they did thankfully give her an improved heal a little while ago, which definitely makes her more playable in today's game. I definitely would have had a round this good without that improved heal that they gave her. So that's, big kudos to Wargaming for that. But, maybe it's time to, like, tighten up the dispersion of her guns or something else, because, yeah, there's zero reason to get this ship, really, at all. And don't think that because it looks like a Valparaiso and it starts with a V like Valparaiso, that it plays like the Valparaiso. It absolutely does not. So don't fall into that trap. And you might be thinking, well, who the hell was going to mistake the Vanguard for the Valparaiso? You'd be surprised how little research some people do. They see the ship, it looks the same, so they think it's the same as the other ship. So, yeah. Alright, speaking of terrible battleships, on the way down to number 3. The California, the Tier 7 Premium American battleship. Did you like New Mexico? No, of course you didn't. That's what the California is, but the joke is you have to pay for it. And now you get Tier 7 matchmaking instead of Tier 6 matchmaking. So instead of getting double up tier to deal with Tier 8 ships, you get double up tier to deal with Tier 9 ships. And that, oh my god, does that suck in the California, because it's a big, juicy target that everyone and their mom wants to farm because you're pretty much free damage. You have no speed at all because you're a American standard battleship, and your reload's still long, even though they did buff it a little while ago. So, yeah, no, you don't want to spend money on this ship at all. Now, the California, again, historical ship, I do like it. Not a museum ship, of course. She was not saved after the war. But, Tennessee-class battleship and a pre- and post-Pearl Harbor ship. I think it's cool seeing these ships in their post-Pearl Harbor refit. It looks really neat. It's a nice combination of, pre-war technology and, modern... Well, not modern technology. I guess I should say modernization. 1940s technology, a nice blend like the late 20s, 30s, and 40s technology. I really liked seeing that added to the game. Right? It's a nice little historical thing that you don't really hear much about because think about World War II, and most like History Channel documentaries and stuff, mainstream stuff, just focuses on like the Iowas, of course. But seeing these older battle wagons, modernized and stuff, I think that's really cool. So that's why I was excited when the California was coming to the game. But unfortunately, they just made her Tier 7 New Mexico. Except that the New Mexico is actually better to play because, well, you don't have to deal with getting double up tier to Tier 9 games. So, yeah, they did reduce her reload, though, from 34.2 seconds to 32.5 seconds, which, yeah, that was very much needed and very much welcomed. And they did also change her acceleration parameters to be basically that of the Kansas, Minnesota, and the Vermont, so the battleship line. So, she gets up to speed a little bit quicker, but she still is stuck going, 20 knots. 20 knots and change with the flag, and if you run brisk, a little bit faster too, but definitely not really fast enough to deal with, Tier 9 ships. So keep in mind, like, this thing has to fight Tier 9 ships and all the craziness that comes with that nowadays. So, yeah, you didn't like playing New Mexico at Tier 6. You're not going to like playing bigger New Mexico at Tier 7. I promise you that. Although, again, the changes made her a little bit more comfortable to play. Don't spend money on this ship. If you pick up the Tennessee, that's a much better ship, and it's the same class, but the guns are actually good, unlike the California. That happens when you give a battleship cruiser dispersion. But, yeah, passing the California, if you can get the Tennessee instead. Alright, going way down now to number 2. We have the Picardie, a ship that I talked about a couple of weeks ago. But, yeah, it's also bad. Yeah, so she made an appearance in the most disappointing premium ships list a few weeks ago. And here she is again on Ships to Avoid because, yeah, not only was she disappointing, she was downright bad. And it's such a weird situation with the Picardie. So the Picardie, I believe, completes the French up-tiered battleship secret second line, right? So if you guys don't know, one thing Wargaming really loves to do with the French, and they're kind of expanding it to other lines here too now, they'll take a lower-tier ship, turbocharge it, and sell it at one tier higher. Like the Bourgogne is an up-tiered Alsace, the Jean Bar is an up-tiered Richelieu, now the Picardie is an up-tiered Lyon, and the Strasbourg is an up-tiered Dunkirk. So, when we got the Picardie, I was thinking, okay, cool, this is like the last puzzle in the secret second French battleship line. But they did some very weird things with the Picardie. For one, instead of taking the Leon's guns, which are actually fairly good, and just making them more accurate, they said, oh, we're actually going to replace the guns with some 305mm guns instead of the Leon's guns because reasons for some reason. So that's a little odd. And of course, with the smaller guns comes smaller damage numbers. But okay, Sealer, are the guns maybe more accurate? No, they're not. They're not all that accurate at all. And then her AA isn't that good, and her secondaries, while they do get more range, they aren't accurate either. So while, yeah, they did give the main battery reload booster as well, for some reason, they just didn't let her keep the 340mm guns that you get on the Leon. Like, letting her keep that, but then just slapping main battery reload booster on it, and maybe, like, shaving a second or two off the reload time and calling it a day, they just yoinked her main battery guns for some reason. So, because of that, the ship is just bad. And even the HE that you're going to have to rely on because she has 305mm guns is very, very bad. So, unfortunately, the ship all around is just bad. And what's really funny is that this ship came out the same week as the Napoleon movie came out. The, what's-his-face, Ridley Scott Napoleon movie. So, I got turbo disappointed by the French twice that week. So, Leon's better if you want a Leon, just get a Leon and buy the premium package for it. Don't get this thing, because not only you're paying for an up-tiered gimped Leon, you're now having to, well, I said it, it's up-tiered, right? So you're in tier 8 matchmaking, you have to deal with tier 10 ships now, and that just sucks. So, moving all the way down now to another French boat, we have the tier 9 French cruiser, the Carnot. Yeah, the Carnot, another odd creation from Wargaming. So the Carnot is probably one of the least French ships in the game. He's also, I think, one of the least played of the large cruisers, you know, like the Carnot, the Alaska, the Stalingrad, the Siegfried, the Aegir, so forth and so on. You don't really see these guys too much for, well, the reason it's on this list. It's unfortunately just not really worth getting anymore. Like, when she came out back in 2021, you know, she was the first French large cruiser of this manner, right? And I was like, okay, cool, you get 10 305mm guns, that's pretty cool. The AP is pretty solid, and the armor is, like, pretty good at close range. But unfortunately, of course, like, even back in 2021, high-tier games weren't really conducive to that type of gameplay style all that often. I like the background footage, just like with the, you know, the Vanguard's background footage. You know, the stars aligned. I was able to do some close-range things in the Carnot for the background footage, so it's like, okay, yeah, as you can see, when you can get close and run the ships that, you know, don't have torpedoes or aren't supported by destroyers with torpedoes, you can kind of run in there and do some pretty funny things, even to some of the newer French cruisers, right? But that right there is why the Carnot's really not worth it, because why, you know, cough over the resources or the money needed to get the Carnot when you can just go and get the Marseille, which is, in my opinion, and I think most of you guys' opinion too, a much better ship than the Carnot. Like, yeah, I know it's a tier 10, but by the Marseille, I mean, like, the whole Marseille line, right? Like, you know, the Brest is a better tier 9 than the Marceau. But anyway, because the French cruisers are still pretty French. They get the engine boost, they get their main battery reload booster, and they also get the same large caliber guns as the Marseille does. But they're much better for the modern day meta than the Marseille. Mainly because, one, they have the main battery reload booster, which is very weird. You know, the ship came out in 2021, which is very, very much into the main battery reload booster phase of the French cruisers. Or, well, really the French ships in general, right? You know, how long have they been just bolting main battery reload boosters onto French ships? We just got done talking about how there's a whole line of French battleships focused around that. And me thinks they were actually planning on doing that here with the Carnot. It's like, if you look at her reload time, she has a 25-second reload time, which is the longest reload time of any of the large cruisers. Even though she only gets, you know, one more gun than what most of them get, right? Most of the large cruisers get 9 305mm guns. She gets one more, but then they slap her with a 25-second reload. So you might think, okay, so that's a little long, but I'm sure with her main battery reload booster, you know, that makes up for it, right? You would think so, but of course she doesn't get it. And now, while her armor is good at close range, it's unfortunately not that great at longer range because there's just a lot of ship to shoot here. A lot, like, look how much of this ship stands up out of the water. So when you're dealing with, you know, more traditional higher tier games where, you know, you're just getting dunked on from longer ranges, it doesn't really go that well in the Carnot. Like, yeah, you have the engine booster and that can save you a bit at range. So there is that, but like, again, it's just not really a great ship in today's World of Warships, and you can just grind the Marseille line for free and have a much more enjoyable time in those ships than you would in the Carnot. Again, there's a reason the ship doesn't show up too much at all in random battles, at least over here on the North American server. So yeah, not really worth coughing up the cash or the resource or whatever you need in order to acquire the Carnot. I'm not even sure if it's available right now, but if it ever does come available, just give it a hard pass, guys. It's not really worth it. So guys, those are my top 5 premium ships to avoid. Let me know in the comments down below. What do you guys agree with? What do you disagree with? What are your top 5 premium ships to avoid? And what would you like to see in next week's top 5 video? Let us know all that and more in the comments down below. Hope you guys have a wonderful Monday and wonderful rest of your week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.